The conference room in Geneva fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Commander Jack Morrison stood at attention, his hands clasped behind his back as 12 alien faces materialized before him. Each one represented a different species, a different world, and each one wore the same expression of cold authority. Dr. Helen Carter sat beside him, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted her translation device. She had spent 3 months learning the Council's primary language, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. The weight of Earth's future pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. The central figure, a tall being with crystalline skin that refracted light in strange patterns, spoke first. Its voice echoed through the room with an otherworldly quality that made Morrison's skin crawl. The translation came through clearly enough, though the words themselves were anything but comforting. Your species has expanded beyond acceptable limits. The Council has observed your aggressive colonization of nearby systems. You will cease all expansion immediately. You will surrender your advanced propulsion technology. You will accept our guidance as a client species under Council law. These terms are not negotiable. General Frank Hayes, watching from his command center 3 floors below, felt his jaw tighten. He had warned the diplomats this would happen. The Council had made similar demands to 17 other emerging species in the past century. Every single one had accepted. Every single one had become little more than slaves to the Galactic Order. Morrison took a deep breath before responding. You are asking us to give up our freedom. To stop growing. To stop exploring. That is something humanity cannot do. The crystalline being's expression did not change. Freedom is a luxury afforded to those with power. You lack power. Therefore, you lack choice. You have 72 hours to comply. To demonstrate our seriousness, we will now disable every satellite in your orbital space. Before Morrison could respond, every screen in the building went dark. Lieutenant Katie Brooks burst into the room, her face pale. General, Commander, all satellite systems just went offline. Communications, GPS, weather monitoring, everything. They did it in less than 3 seconds. The holographic council members observed the chaos with apparent satisfaction. This is a small demonstration of our capabilities. Compliance or destruction. The choice is yours. 72 hours, the display vanished, leaving the room in darkness broken only by emergency lighting. Morrison looked at Dr. Carter, then at the general who had joined them. They need to see everything we have on past council interactions. Every species they have contacted. I want to know what happened to the ones who refused. Dr. Carter pulled up her personal tablet, switching to battery power. I have been researching that question for weeks. The answer is troubling. Species that refuse the council simply disappear from all records. No trace. No explanation. It is as if they never existed. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of emergency meetings and heated debates. World leaders argued over every possible option. Some wanted to accept the terms and survive. Others preferred to fight and die free. Morrison sat through countless sessions, listening to the same arguments repeated in different ways. Dr. Carter worked without sleep, digging through every fragment of information they had about the council. She found patterns in the historical data. Advanced species making contact with younger ones. Demands. Compliance. Then silence about what came before. The gaps in galactic history were too convenient, too complete. With 30 minutes remaining on the deadline, Earth's united government reached a decision. Morrison stood once again in the conference room, waiting for the holographic display to activate. This time, he was alone. This time, he knew exactly what he had to say. The council members appeared, their expressions expectant. The crystalline being spoke first. You have reached a decision. State your compliance. Morrison straightened his shoulders and looked directly at each council member in turn. Humanity rejects your terms. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not stop exploring. We will not become your subjects. If you choose to destroy us for this decision, then at least we will die as free people. The silence that followed felt like it might last forever. The council members looked at each other with expressions Morrison could not read. Finally, the crystalline being spoke, and for the first time, its voice carried something other than cold authority. It carried surprise. You understand what this means. Your species will be eliminated. There will be nothing left. No history. No legacy. Nothing. Morrison nodded slowly. I understand. And I also understand that some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. The display flickered. The crystalline being opened its mouth to speak. And then, in the space of a single heartbeat, everything changed. The holographic display froze. The council members became still images suspended in midair. Morrison stared at them, confused. Lieutenant Brooks checked her equipment, then looked up with wide eyes. Sir, I am not doing this. The system is locked. I cannot move anything. 7 minutes passed in complete silence. Morrison counted each second. At exactly 7 minutes after his refusal, every council vessel in Earth's orbital space went dark. Power signatures vanished. Propulsion systems stopped. Life support readings flatlined. 12 massive warships became nothing more than floating metal coffins. General Hayes appeared in the doorway, breathing hard from his run up the stairs. All council ships just went silent. We are trying to hail them but getting nothing. No response. No power readings. Nothing. Morrison felt his stomach drop. This was not how extinction was supposed to happen. Where were the weapons? Where was the destruction? He looked at Dr. Carter, who had gone pale. She was reading something on her tablet, her hands shaking. Commander, we are receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Similar power failures are being detected across all known Council territories. Captain Dennis Cole commanded Earth's defense vessel Valiant, currently positioned near the largest Council warship. His voice crackled through the communication system. Command, requesting permission to board the Council flagship. We need to know what happened. General Hayes gave the authorization. Morrison watched through the live video feed as Cole led a team of 6 Marines across the gap between ships. They cut through the airlock without resistance. The Council ship's systems were completely dead, but life support should have had backup power. Should have. Cole's voice came through the feed, quiet and tense. We are inside. Lights are off but our equipment is working fine. Moving to the bridge now. The video feed showed empty corridors. Clean. Organized. But completely devoid of life. They reached the bridge 5 minutes later. Morrison leaned forward, straining to see the details on the screen. Cole panned his camera across the command center. Stations were still active, screens still displaying data. But there were no bodies. No crew. No signs of struggle or panic. The council members had simply vanished. Command, you need to see this. There is nobody here. No crew. No bodies. Nothing. It is like they all just disappeared. Cole's voice carried a note of fear that Morrison had never heard from the veteran captain before. All their equipment is still running. Food in the galley is still warm. But there is not a single living being on this entire ship. Dr. Carter pulled up data from the other council vessels. Captain Cole, what you are seeing matches reports from all 12 ships. They are all empty. We are also receiving similar reports from monitoring stations. Council activity has ceased across an area spanning thousands of light years. Morrison tried to process what he was hearing. How many beings are we talking about? How many council members existed across all their territories? Dr. Carter worked her tablet, pulling up population estimates. Based on their census data from 6 months ago, approximately 400 billion sentient beings lived under council governance. If these reports are accurate, they are all gone. Every single one. Vanished in the same 7-minute window. The room fell silent. 400 billion. Morrison had led missions where thousands died, and those losses had haunted him for years. 400 billion was beyond his ability to comprehend. The number was too large. Too impossible. General Hayes broke the silence. Did we do this? Did our refusal somehow trigger this? His voice was steady, but Morrison could hear the weight behind the words. Doctor Carter shook her head. I do not know. But I need to review all the historical data again. Something happened here. Something we do not understand. She gathered her equipment quickly. I am going to the research lab. There has to be an explanation in the record somewhere. Morrison watched her leave, then turned back to the screen showing Cole's team on the Council flagship. Captain, continue your search. Document everything you find. We need answers. Over the next several hours, reports continued to flood in from Earth's scattered monitoring stations. The pattern was consistent everywhere. Council species gone. Their worlds intact. Their cities powered and functioning. But completely empty of life. As if 400 billion beings had simply chosen to stop existing at exactly the same moment, Morrison stood at the window of the command center, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations had just ceased to exist. And somehow, impossibly, it had happened the moment Earth said no. The moment humanity chose freedom over survival. What had they done? What force had they awakened? And most importantly, what would happen next? Dr. Helen Carter had not slept in 3 days. Her research lab was covered in papers, screens displaying alien text, and empty coffee cups. She had been searching for answers, and finally, she found something. Something that made her blood run cold. Commander Morrison entered the lab to find her staring at a screen, her face lit by the glow of ancient text. Helen, you called for me. What did you find? She looked up at him with exhausted eyes. I found warnings. Ancient warnings that we could not translate before because we did not have the right context. But now, with access to Council translation databases, I can read them. She pulled up an image of Martian ruins. These symbols have been on Mars for millions of years. We always thought they were decorative. They are not. Morrison leaned closer to the screen. What do they say? Dr. Carter read from her translation. Beware the guardians. They watch the young ones. They protect the innocent. Those who seek to chain the free will be removed. The galaxy belongs to all, not to the strong. This is the eternal law. She pulled up another screen showing galactic historical records. I went through everything we captured from Council databases. There are gaps in galactic history. Huge gaps. Civilizations that just stop being mentioned. No wars. No disasters. They just vanish from all records. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. How many times has this happened? 47 times that I can find evidence for. 47 advanced civilizations that attempted to dominate younger species. All of them disappeared completely. The Council was number 48. Professor Alan Grant arrived at that moment, nearly running into the lab. He was a xenoarchaeologist who had spent his career studying ancient ruins. Commander, Dr. Carter, I need to show you something. I have been examining Council records about restricted zones in deep space. There is a research station marked as forbidden. The coordinates are included, but there are warnings never to approach it. Dr. Carter pulled up the location data. This station is at the edge of what used to be Council territory. According to these files, it is millions of years old. The Council studied it but could never access its core systems. Morrison made his decision quickly. We need to go there. Whatever happened to the Council, the answers might be at that station. He contacted General Hayes immediately. Sir, I am requesting permission to lead an expedition to investigate an ancient facility. It might explain what happened. General Hayes approved the mission within the hour. Morrison assembled a small team. Dr. Carter would handle translation and analysis. Professor Grant would examine any archaeological evidence. Lieutenant Sam Hughes would lead security. Captain Cole would pilot their ship. The journey took 6 days. They traveled through empty Council space, passing abandoned colonies and silent stations. Every world they saw was the same. Cities intact. Technology functioning. But no people. The emptiness was overwhelming. When they finally reached the coordinates, Morrison understood why the Council had marked this place as forbidden. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in symbols and patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. And it was old. Older than anything humanity had ever encountered. Captain Cole brought them in slowly, scanning for any signs of danger. Nothing. The station is not hostile. It is actually broadcasting a signal. A welcoming signal. It wants us to come inside. They docked without incident. The airlock opened automatically when they approached. The interior was lit by soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Everything was clean. Everything was waiting. Engineer Linda Park examined the systems as they moved deeper into the station. This technology is incredible. It is maintaining itself perfectly after millions of years. Maybe longer. I have never seen anything like this. Professor Grant stopped at a wall covered in text. These are the same symbols from Mars. The same warnings. But there is more here. Much more. This is a history. A complete history of galactic civilization going back billions of years. Dr. Carter worked with him to translate the text. They found records of an ancient race called the Stewards. These beings had achieved a level of technology and understanding far beyond anything that came after them. And they had created something before they vanished. A system. A protocol. Morrison read the translation over their shoulders. The protocol monitors all civilizations. It identifies patterns of oppression. When an advanced species attempts to suppress the development of younger ones, the protocol activates. It removes the oppressors completely. No trial. No warning. Just elimination. Lieutenant Hughes spoke quietly. So the council was erased because they threatened us. Because we said no to them. Dr. Carter nodded slowly. The protocol has been running for millions of years. Watching. Waiting. Protecting younger species from predators. The council triggered it when they tried to force Earth into submission. She paused, then continued reading. And according to this, the protocol is still active. Still watching. Still protecting. The central chamber of the ancient station was vast beyond measure. Morrison stood at its center, looking up at displays that showed the entire galaxy. Each point of light represented a civilization. Some were bright and active. Others were dim, barely noticeable. And some had vanished completely, leaving only dark spaces where life once existed. Engineer Linda Park worked at a console that had activated when they entered. Commander, I am getting access to the station archives. The amount of data here is incredible. This place has been recording galactic events for over 3 billion years. Dr. Carter joined her at the console, her fingers moving across the strange interface. The stewards were remarkable. They built this entire monitoring system before they disappeared. It covers every inhabited system in the galaxy. It watches. It learns. It protects. Professor Grant called them over to another display. This shows the 47 previous corrections. Each time, the pattern is the same. An advanced species develops superior technology. They encounter younger civilizations. They attempt to dominate rather than cooperate. The protocol identifies the threat pattern. The species is removed. Morrison studied the records carefully. How does it work? How does the protocol eliminate entire civilizations without destroying their worlds? Engineer Park pulled up technical specifications. The stewards developed technology we cannot even begin to understand. They could manipulate space and time at a quantum level. When the protocol activates, it simply removes the targeted species from existence. Not by killing them. By erasing them from the current timeline. They never died. They just stopped being. Lieutenant Hughes looked uncomfortable. So 400 billion council members did not die. They just ceased to exist. Is that better or worse? Dr. Carter turned away from the display, her expression troubled. I do not know if there is a meaningful difference. The result is the same. They are gone. Their children are gone. Their history is gone. Everything they built remains, but they do not. A new display activated suddenly, causing everyone to jump. Text began appearing in English, as if the station had been listening to their conversation and adapted to communicate with them. The message was simple and direct: you seek to understand. This is good. Understanding prevents repetition. The stewards created this protocol to protect the innocent. To ensure that the galaxy remains a place of growth and diversity. To prevent any single power from controlling the destiny of others. The protocol remains active. The protocol will always remain active. Morrison stepped closer to the display. Who are you? Are you the stewards? The text continued. The stewards are gone. They transcended physical existence 3 billion years ago. This system is their legacy. An automated guardian that cannot be corrupted or controlled. It watches all civilizations. It identifies threats. It protects the vulnerable. Dr. Carter asked the next question. What happens to humanity now? We inherited Council territory. We have access to their technology. Does that make us a threat? The display showed images of Earth, of human colonies, of the scattered settlements spreading through nearby systems. Humanity is being observed. The protocol monitors your choices. If you follow the path of the Council, if you seek to dominate rather than cooperate, you will be removed. If you choose differently, you will be allowed to grow. Morrison felt the weight of those words settle over him. What counts as domination? Where is the line between guidance and control? The system displayed what appeared to be rules, written in clear language. Guide, do not rule. Protect, do not possess. Share knowledge freely. Respect the choices of others. Allow all species to determine their own path. Force used to suppress development will trigger correction. Force used to defend freedom will not. Professor Grant recorded everything on his personal device. These principles are clear enough. But implementing them will be difficult. Earth now controls former Council territory. We have access to technology that could make us the dominant power in this region of space. The temptation to use that power will be strong. The display showed one final message. The choice is yours. The stewards believed in free will above all else. The protocol exists not to control but to prevent control. You may succeed. You may fail. You may build a civilization of cooperation and mutual respect. Or you may become what the Council was. The protocol will be watching. The protocol will respond accordingly. The displays went dark. The station fell silent. Morrison looked at his team. We need to return to Earth immediately. Leadership needs to hear this. They need to understand what we are facing. Not just the protocol, but the choice it represents. We can build something better than the Council. Or we can repeat their mistakes and face the same fate. Captain Cole nodded. Setting course for Earth. We should arrive in 6 days. He paused, then added quietly. I hope our leaders make the right choice. For all our sakes. As their ship pulled away from the ancient station, Morrison watched it shrink in the view screen. Somewhere in that structure, automated systems continued their eternal vigil. Watching. Waiting. Ready to protect or to erase. The fate of humanity now depended on wisdom rather than strength. On choice rather than power. The United Nations Assembly Hall was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. Commander Morrison stood at the podium, finishing his presentation about what they had discovered at the ancient station. The silence in the room was absolute. Every person present understood the gravity of what they had just heard. Ambassador Nicole Reed was the first to speak. So we are being tested. Everything we do from this point forward will determine whether humanity survives or joins the Council in extinction. General Frank Hayes stood up, his voice carrying across the chamber. We have inherited an empire. Council territory spans hundreds of systems. Their client species are waiting for someone to tell them what to do next. We could step into that role. We could become the new galactic power. We have the military strength to enforce our will. Dr. Helen Carter responded immediately. And if we do that, we will be erased just like the Council. The protocol does not care about intentions. It only cares about actions. If we force other species to obey us, if we suppress their development, we will trigger the same correction that eliminated 400 billion council members. The debate that followed was intense. Some leaders argued for establishing human authority across former council space. They claimed it was necessary for security, for stability, for preventing chaos. Others insisted that humanity needed to take a completely different approach. To break the cycle of domination that had destroyed every previous galactic power, Morrison listened to both sides, understanding the logic behind each argument. Fear was driving much of the discussion. Fear of the protocol. Fear of other species becoming threats. Fear of making the wrong choice. But beneath the fear, there was also opportunity. A chance to build something genuinely new. Ambassador Reed called for order after 3 hours of debate. We need to make a decision. We cannot leave former council territories in limbo. We cannot ignore the client species who are waiting for guidance. What exactly are we proposing to do? Dr. Carter stood and presented her plan. We dismantle the council system completely. We contact every former client species and offer them full independence. We share technology freely rather than hoarding it. We provide support and protection, but we do not demand obedience. We build a coalition based on cooperation between equals, not submission to authority. General Hayes shook his head. That sounds noble, but it is also naive. Some of these species might use their freedom to become threats. Some might attack Earth or our colonies. We need safeguards. We need control. Morrison spoke up. General, we do need safeguards. But control is exactly what the protocol will punish us for. We can maintain defensive capabilities. We can respond to actual threats. What we cannot do is prevent other species from developing simply because they might become dangerous. That is the line we cannot cross. The vote took another 2 hours. In the end, Earth's united government made their choice. They approved what became known as the Foundation Protocol, named in honor of the principles that would guide humanity forward. The Foundation Protocol contains several key elements. First, all former council authority structures would be dissolved. Second, every client species would be offered complete independence with no strings attached. Third, humanity would establish a coalition of free species working together voluntarily. Fourth, technology and knowledge would be shared openly. Fifth, military force would only be used defensively, never to suppress development. Morrison was chosen to lead the first contact missions to former council worlds. He took Captain Dennis Cole and his crew, along with Dr. Carter, to handle translation and cultural matters. Their first destination was a world called Vega Prime, home to a species that had been under council rule for 300 years. The vegan leadership met them with obvious suspicion. They had heard that the council was gone. They expected new masters to arrive and make new demands. Instead, Morrison delivered a message they could barely believe: you are free. The council is gone. Humanity will not replace them as your rulers. You can govern yourselves. You can develop your own technology. You can make your own choices about your future. We offer friendship and cooperation if you want it. But we demand nothing. The choice is entirely yours. The vegan leader stared at him for a long moment. Why? Why would you give us freedom when you could control us? Your species has the power to enforce your will. Morrison smiled. Because we learned that power used to control others eventually destroys those who wield it. We choose a different path. We choose to build rather than dominate. Over the following months, Morrison and his team visited dozens of worlds. Each time, they delivered the same message. Freedom. Independence. Cooperation without coercion. Some species accepted immediately. Others were skeptical. A few were hostile. But slowly, a new coalition began to form. Not based on fear or force, but on mutual benefit and respect. Dr. Carter monitored the steward systems throughout this process. The ancient station remained silent. The protocol watched but did not act. Humanity had passed the first test by choosing cooperation over domination. Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship one evening, looking out at the stars. Captain Cole joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You think we made the right choice? Morrison accepted the coffee gratefully. I think we made the only choice that gives us a future. The council was powerful. They controlled hundreds of worlds. But they forgot that true strength comes from cooperation, not domination. We have the chance to build something better. Something that lasts not because it is enforced, but because it is chosen. Cole nodded slowly. The protocol is still watching. Still waiting to see if we maintain this path or if we eventually fall into the same patterns as the council. Morrison smiled. Then we will have to keep making the right choices. One day at a time. One decision at a time. Power is not the ability to control others. Real power is knowing when not to use force. Understanding that freedom shared is stronger than obedience enforced. Somewhere in deep space, ancient systems continued their eternal watch. The protocol remained active. Ready to protect. Ready to correct. But for now, it simply observed. Humanity had learned the lesson that cost the council their existence. And in learning that lesson, they had earned the chance to build a future worth protecting.